Hello, and welcome to Critical Weight Theory, a podcast where I talk about a lot of different topics, music, movies, TV shows, life. And today we're going to be looking at the shifting landscapes of American cities, two in particular, and how they work, how they break down, and what they might become. So today, mostly it's about New York City, but I'm also going to be talking about Detroit a little bit in this comparison. And that's right, we're going to look at is New York heading down the same path Detroit took decades ago? And the answer isn't simple, but it's urgent. So I do have to say, I know there's a narrative that Detroit is making a comeback. It's rebounding. There's a resurgence. I've heard all of those talking points, and maybe there's a bit of truth to that. So I'm not looking to offend anybody who lives in Detroit or has a soft spot for it. And in fact, I live in Michigan. That's where I am right now. So it's not like I'm, an outsider just pointing a finger at a place in the state of Michigan and laughing for no reason or whatever. I live here, so it's not like I'm just bullying it as an outsider or something like that. Maybe I'm not bullying it at all. I don't know. I do have a little bit of a story, a little bit of a tangent. I I once had somebody, you know, cancel my friendship on Facebook because I jokingly said that Detroit is the home of RoboCop. And that was the last straw. So I know people can be sensitive about the image of Detroit, but imagine that being the last straw, that ended a Facebook friendship. Well, I'm sure there were other things, but that is a cute little story. So I know people can be sensitive if they think you're insulting a city or whatever, but I'm asking you to look past that a little bit and accept the general perception based in some fact. It's rooted in some factual data. Anyway, the point of view is that Detroit is not what it used to be. You know, it's a fair assessment, and sure, it might be trying to climb its way back into a better place, but it's just not what it once was. So, all right, let's start out the root here. How work has changed. So, when it comes to the changing workplaces, manufacturing used to mean one thing. You had big factories, right? And in them you had long hours, mostly men working them, and they mostly worked with machines. But that era is mostly gone. What replaced it is more fragmented, smaller teams, as they like to call them. In a workplace, they like to call everybody a teammate. You have flexible operations, new equipment, and fewer people. So, how about that? The workscape is changing for a lot of people out there. So, call it what you want. You could call it the downfall of capitalism. You could call it automation, lean production, whatever. It's all designed to cut what companies call waste. But here's the catch: when whole cities are built around one kind of work, and that work changes or leaves, the city can crumble. That's largely what happened to Detroit. I'm not saying it's totally lost or anything like that. Let's not get it twisted here. I'm not saying there's nothing in Detroit, but it's no longer known for being the Motor City or whatever. And people are asking, could it happen to New York? Could New York go down that same dusty trail, I guess? Um, so Detroit's fall offers a few lessons, of course. Detroit didn't fall overnight. It was a slow motion collapse, and the city was once the arsenal of democracy, it was sometimes called. Then came over reliance on auto manufacturing, a phenomenon called white flight. I didn't invent the term. It's something that has been described for a long time. And of course, there was corruption, tax base erosion, neglected infrastructure, the works. Basically, the place became a bit of a mess. And again, people are trying to clean it up. They're maybe doing a good job, maybe not. I'll leave that up to you to decide that on your own. But once jobs and people started leaving, a death spiral of sorts kicked in. You had budget crises, crime, disinvestment. Now some are seeing signs of a similar pattern in New York. So is New York in trouble? Post COVID, remote work is permanent for many. Manhattan office towers are sitting half empty. You can definitely find news reports telling you as much. Commercial real estate is in trouble as well. Some are calling it the urban doom loop. Add extreme living costs, and you've got pressure on families, small businesses, and public services. The transit, sanitation, and education sectors. I normally don't use the word sector, but there it is. They're all under stress. And yes, out migration is real. That sounds like a jargon term, but just people leaving, people voting with their feet. And people are moving to more affordable cities if they are out there and if they can find them. So good luck with that. If anybody is, trying to find a more affordable place, you might find things could be a little bit iffy no matter where you go, no matter where you end up, especially with the fact that cities are no longer a certain place to find work, and neither are rural environments, of course. That's why people move to cities in the first place. So, economically, the divide is stark. Inflation may be down in some areas, but middle class families are still squeezed. The wealthy elite thrives while the working class is barely hanging on. And, it's a bit of a dire situation. But here's the difference. Still, New York isn't Detroit, and here's why. New York is massive, diverse, considered globally relevant. It's not built on one industry. It's a financial, cultural, and media capital. Now, when it comes to Detroit, I don't want to pick on it too much because it actually did have some meaningful media that came from there, namely music, you know, and you've got like great proto punk bands like MC5, and I'm pretty sure Motown is considered mostly from Detroit, right? Isn't that the origin of the very term Motown? So, it's had an impact other than the automobile manufacturing. But, it's not the case that all those types of, music icons were creating jobs for people. If you look at New York, it still draws talent and capital from every corner of the planet. And you can't say that about, a lot of other cities out there that are kind of floundering, with Detroit being one of them. And even with half empty offices, NYC's real estate is still worth billions, and that kind of scale gives it options if the city chooses to use them. So, what would it take for New York City to collapse, or I guess New York in general? People easily conflate the city for the state. So, what would it actually take for New York to go the way of Detroit? Massive sustained population loss, a collapse of key industries without new ones rising up, government paralysis, failing to adapt to the new urban economy, infrastructure decay with no serious investment. But none of that is inevitable, right? So, what could save it? Resilience takes effort, but here's what could keep NYC standing: turn vacant offices or vacant office space into housing. How about that? You know, mobilize the housing into reality, and you've got plenty of space, office space, former office space to do that with. So there's that as an option. You could prioritize public services, transit, sanitation, education, etc. I believe that healthcare is considered a public service and stuff like that. Make it affordable for middle class families to stay. Now, I don't know exactly how you would do that, but I guess that there are some ways if you really put your thoughts into it. Invest with vision and plan for a city shaped by, yes, AI, remote work, and new kinds of labor. The idea of a lot of factories being in every American city are, well, that idea is on its way out. Well, it's been on its way out for a while now. And these new types of job, these gig economy jobs, they're things that people are going to have to improve upon because that's really what the labor pool is like. And New York isn't bulletproof, no city is, but it's not necessarily doomed either, not unless we let it slide. The key is refusing complacency because if we don't fight for the future of our cities, we're guaranteed to lose them. But you know what? Maybe that's actually what's supposed to happen anyway. I don't know. Maybe all of this is happening for a reason. Maybe the growth of cities is not sustainable, as the environmentalists would say out there. And that could be some food for thought. So I guess that's really all I have to say about it right now. I don't think I have any grand solutions, but definitely the housing option is one that I definitely would recommend. So my name's Wade, as I'm sure you've gathered, and this has been Critical Wade Theory. If you like this episode, go ahead and share it. You can rate it if there's something like that, and hit a subscribe button if you so choose. If you dare, I guess I'll put it like that. Maybe if I dare people to do it, they're a little more likely to do it. What are you, chicken? You can't hit that subscribe button? What are you? Be more of a man. Hit the subscribe button. Or if you're a woman, well, be more of a woman, I guess. I don't think that works as well, but there it is anyway. Be more of a person. It, impress me out there by subscribing. It amasses my power. It builds me up, makes me into a podcast that people might actually listen to. And you know what? My content is better than Joe Rogan. I'm going to say it. Even this episode, which probably wasn't that great, it's still better than Joe Rogan. He's lame. I haven't said that in a while. I should really say that in each and every episode. I know it would turn away some possible Joe Rogan fans out there, but oh well, whatever. Um, anyway, I've ended this awkward episode. Um, Here you go. I'm going to click the stop button.